5-second delay here. Hey everyone, and welcome to The Index, brought to you by The Graph, where we talk with the entrepreneurs building the next wave of the internet. I'm your host, Alex Kahaya, and on today's show, we have the co-founder of Unit Masters, Governor of H.E.R, Yip Ta. She has been recognized for her exceptional work in the field of blockchain and is here to talk about her latest venture, Unit Masters. This virtual program is aimed at providing comprehensive education on blockchain literacy, making it accessible and equitable for people all around the world. Yip is passionate about blockchain education and will share her insights on how Unit Masters is shaping the future of blockchain education. Thanks for being here on the show.
Hi, Alex. It's extremely joyful to be sharing the space with you today. Thanks for having me.
So I really appreciate your background. We didn't get into this prior to the show, but I actually started my career as an educator. And it's another reason why I like having this podcast, is because it's a vehicle for me to educate people and spread information about what we're all building. So I love that you're passionate about that. Where I'd like to just like walk us through how you got into doing what you're doing today. Like, where did you start? What's your story?
Wow. This was like a galactic question. Let me just reflect for a moment, just so I share a story that is also relevant to a person.
We love galactic questions. We love galactic questions on the show.
So there's in general three topics I really, really care about in life. That is Web3, well-being, human empowerment, and more started off with general for well-being. And this well-being actually encompass, like all my life, I've been wanting to understand, not all my life started in high school. I've been wanting to understand how can we make the capitalistic system that makes our everyday life work, how can we make it work for good, right? How can we build equitable economic systems? And I went into social entrepreneurship, worked with the Peace Nobel Prize laureate Mohammed Yunus, who received the prize for bringing banking to the poor. And I noticed, I went to India because I wanted to learn, how can you use these tools of microfinance and really help empower women to shape their lives, shape their futures, shape the economy in which they live in. And then I noticed this is not so scalable. So I was looking for a different means to find out how can we scale this idea of social entrepreneurship, where everyone is an entrepreneur shaping their own lives, and how can everyone become a contributor to the economy and live the way in which they want to live it, right? Irrespective of their backgrounds, irrespective of if they went to school or not. And social entrepreneurship seemed to be so enticing to me, but what it lacked was some technological infrastructure that can help reward and coordinate incentive systems in a way that everyone who contributes gets rewarded in a fair way. Like unit economics typically don't work out if you don't have technology and digitization. If everything is on paperwork, then things are just like doing a micro activities, microservices just is not profitable because you have so much overhead costs. So that was the idea, like well-being, and how can we build equitable economic systems in which each human being can thrive. And then I basically went into management consulting, tried to understand on national level and on big corporate levels, how can we shape the economic systems, right? How do we build digitization stories, digital transformations, where big players can build the infrastructure so that everyone can access the economy. I noticed then at some point in time, I actually seek for more hands-on work, not only on a strategy side, craft all these digital transformation strategies, but really build the technological infrastructure that can help people get access to financial systems, get access to the economy, do what they love to do. And then I discovered Web3. After I left my consulting career, I became a well-being instructor, a meditation teacher, an executive coach. Actually went to school to study what makes the human mind work. How can we center ourselves? How can we find our purpose, our vision, and then how do we come in very stressful situations? But how do we make decisions? And then I basically went to the World Economic Forum and was looking for ways to combine technology, well-being, like mental health, to make good decisions that benefit many people, and find the right technological platform. And then I met people who had founded blockchain projects, like co-founders of Ethereum, Hyperledger, and had discussions with them of how can we actually bring the economy to the next level. And they shared about all tokens and cryptocurrency and distributed systems. I was like, this is new to me. I actually want to learn more about that. And this is when I really got into the rabbit hole. That was only in 2020, so not too far away. But the overarching theme, I would say, is well-being and economic empowerment, or really the economic empowerment through Web3 technology. That really fascinates me.
Yeah, I find it fascinating as well. And it's something like the first show that I started was called Follow the White Rabbit, and it was all about the intersection of human rights, technology, privacy, and democracy. And I think Web3 sits at the center of that for a lot of reasons. And I would love for you to walk everyone through. There's so much I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about well-being. One, that's really important. But before that, I want you to walk us through how you see this technology impacting equitable access to the economy, the global economy, because I think, especially for Americans, like, we just have so much access, we take it for granted. And I think that they don't, like, what I've seen, the pattern I've seen is, like, especially in like emerging markets and for women, there's a lack of access that maybe we don't know, even aren't aware of. So maybe just walk us through all that.
Yeah, maybe if I just start sharing about why I think Web3 might really transform our economy, our everyday lives, is because it's similar to the internet that gave us access to information at almost zero cost. And then mobile devices, cloud, and social media platforms, which people would call Web 2, would give us access to communication almost free of cost. Right? Like, now I can speak to people in Vietnam, in the US, out of Germany for free if I have WhatsApp and internet access. And this was like really revolutionary in driving further globalization. What is actually happening right now is Web3, where everyone can access an internet of value. Everyone can participate in economic exchange throughout the world and sending whatever they find valuable, most typically packaged in a container called a token, from A to B without the need for an intermediary, which mainly is represented by banks and other financial systems, stakeholders in the current markets. So what it means is, in Web3, if Web3 hits its peak in hopefully a few years, it's as common to have a wallet as to have a WhatsApp account or an Instagram account, where we can just share our pictures and stories and whatever else we care about. And in Web3, we can share value with each other. We can co-create value in a permissionless way. And the infrastructure allows us, it's actually an evolved version of the gig economy that we're already seeing, that people are wanting to collaborate with each other on global projects. But as of now, the legal structures, infrastructures, technological structures make it very difficult for me to hire someone in Nigeria, like just for a $20 per hour job. Right? But in Web3, I could pay them in cryptocurrencies, and they can convert that cryptocurrency in the fiat currency that they care about locally. So there's different means to do that. And everyone could set up their own DAO and entity. It's an internet entity. And you might even think it's a bit like when maybe Amazon launched the bookshop online, and people would be like, well, how should all that stuff work? How would we ever sell and buy trades across the globe only with internet access and ship electronically? But what we're seeing is that the infrastructure around making a world that is built on the internet is being built every minute as we're speaking. Yeah, everyone can actually participate in collaborating with each other, and then share in the value that they have co-created together. So it becomes a more equitable contributors world. And that is based on like pre-governed or predefined execution logic as per as defined in smart contracts, for example.
Yeah, let's drill down here a little bit. So you talked about a bank as being like an intermediary, or in this idea of permissioned versus permissionless.
Yeah.
Give us a couple examples of where these intermediaries and where the need for permission to participate prevents equitable access.
Yeah, I love that you're drilling it down. That's the job of a great educator. Making complex topics understandable. So the first thing, maybe just ahead of everything else, when I say what personally fascinates me most about Web3, or even when I just think about Bitcoin, which is like what people call the first real implementation of this idea of a permissionless system, is what is actually the social innovation of Bitcoin. It's not so much a technological, it's a social innovation, as I call it, because what it does is it has put a system in place in which cheating the system is more costly than complying to the system, right? So it makes playing to the rules of that system more profitable, which means that, you know, it already takes into account that human nature of irrationality and us trying to circumvent any kind of rules. And it helps us staying creative and not even having an incentive to cheat the system, because if we do so, it doesn't work. So that was really genius. And so now looking at what does permissionless access instead of bank account means. For example, a big problem to many people in unbanked areas is they cannot get a bank account because they don't have a credit history. So if you want to have an entity that is not cash, which is like prone to inflation, for example, we have countries that have horrendous inflation rates in the double digits, right? Where if you hold your local cash, then it's worth less and less and less with every day you're not using it. But then there's no incentive to save anything because it doesn't make sense to hold any cash. So these people, where could they actually store all the cash? Typically, you would put that into gold or hold anything else that may be a better store of value. And typically, you would bring it to a bank so that, you know, people can't just break into your house and then steal it from you. And what happens is when you don't have a credit history, you cannot actually get an account in a bank. And most of the time, also for the banks in these underserved markets, it's not very profitable for you to serve you, because you are such a small customer that opening up a bank account and going through all the regulatory checks is more costly than the customer lifetime value of yourself. So no, they don't even care about offering that service to you. So what do you do? And now with like, you have access to the internet, you can just open up a wallet, and then basically everyone in the world could send funds to you, but not only everyone, also all your friends and so on. So you don't need that entity in the center that by infrastructure doesn't have an incentive to support you, not because they're mean, but just because the economics don't make sense. The unit economics don't make sense. And with this internet of value, you have access. And then from there, you can start to build any kind of entrepreneurial project that you want to build.
Yeah, I love that example. I think it's a really, really poignant one, because it is a very simple access point that, again, I think many of us take for granted. Like, I would never have a problem setting up a bank account. It is a huge pain in the butt. I don't like doing it, but I don't have a problem doing it. You know, I'm never blocked. But many people are unbanked and they can't get banked. It's like impossible.
Yeah, and then DeFi. You know, even if you have a bank account and you come from a country that doesn't have a really good reputation, and maybe yourself, you don't have a lot of assets on the bank account, then you will not get access to the credit markets, to capital, to fund your business, you know, in a cost-efficient way. So what happened when DeFi opened up, it meant that everyone could put a savings and loan against whatever they had there without needing to showcase like a long track record, because they had assets there that would be taken away if like the loan were not to be repaid. And that didn't matter if you were in New York, if you were in South Africa, in Johannesburg, or if you were, I don't know, somewhere in Vietnam. You had the same deal conditions. Like that had been unheard of before, that a person from an emerging markets would get the same financing deals as someone from the privileged developed economies.
Yeah, great example. And so now I want to go back towards wellness. Like, what is this? What is that? How do you tie this in? How does this tie in for you? How does wellness and your background in
Yeah,
meditation as like a wellness coach tie into all of this?
yeah, you know, we are really at a historic moment in the history. I think it's a bit like the Roaring '20s. I hope we have a better ending than the Roaring '20s 100 years ago. That we're a culmination of different innovations, like social innovations such as Web3, then AI, technology, finance, and globalization. Right, everything comes together, and because we are in such a formative like moment of history, like seriously, each of us is in position to write history nowadays with our contributions, our decisions that we're making. It's the more important to, I think, understand how you want to use your talent, what kind of talents you want to build. And well-being has like two components for me. One is like well, and the other is being. Being is very simple. That's like the skill to be in the present moment, to live life fully in the present moment. To live fully means to live integrated with different forms of intelligence that is given to us, like the rational, the analytic intelligence, like calculating spreadsheets and, you know, knowing the pros and cons of every decision you make. But also the emotional intelligence is in what is actually behind just my thought patterns, what is driving my behavior. How do I actually make a decision that my body intelligence feels okay with, my heart says it's all right. Like typical in coaching, you would ask, what would your grandmother say? Anybody you really cared about, right? But that's kind of the emotional checking. And then maybe for some people who believe that there's a higher self, then what would be the spiritual dimension of it? So that depending on how integrated you see your different dimensions of being, you want to know how to integrate all of them and live in a coordinated, orchestrated flow state of being in every moment. So it sounds simple, but it's learnable. It's a skill. Mindfulness is a skill. And then you have the part of well, which is like, what is good for you? What is right for you? What is it that you stand up for every moment, every morning, right? What is the light that guides you without shadow, like where you can stand under this light and be fully, you know, I don't know, enlightened or connected. And that's different for everyone else. And the beautiful thing about Web3 is there is no right or wrong. Like in Web3, we focus on market incentive behaviors. And we build ecosystems in which, like, for example, in the Bitcoin ecosystem, cheating is more costly than complying. You don't need to trust or have like morale that people should behave in this way, because what is the norm for me might not be the norm for my neighbor. So, you know, but we can still coordinate our incentives over time, and that it works out and everyone can live their life fully. That's why it's so important. But also one other reason why I'm so excited about it is when I joined blockchain just a few years ago, there were very few women at the conferences. I mean, I only joined 2020, so I think 2016 must have been even worse. But like,
It
basically, I
was
would go
pretty
to all the
bad.
conferences. Yeah,
It was pretty
thanks.
bad. The conferences were also just very different. Like,
Yeah.
it was really bad. There was like the height of the ICO days, and I would go to conferences, and the only women there would be like in bikinis with like huge
Oh.
signs, like trying to attract people to like token sales. I mean, literally, I went to conferences like that in San Francisco and all over the world where, it wasn't all of them, but there were a few that you walked in and you were like, wow, this is different. Not what I was expecting.
You know, the
So.
interesting thing is a little bit of it is still prevailing today. Even when, you know, sometimes I'm at these parties in crypto, because I'm the only woman left, there's somehow an expectation that I'm just staying there to, you know, have some relationships with the host. And when I noticed that, like when I realized that this was the expectation, it's like, no, it's actually not. I have the right to, like, I happen to be a woman, but it doesn't mean that just because I'm the woman.
That's terrible to hear. That's so disappointing. I mean, I work at the Solana Foundation. I also have a company in the space called Olaplex. My COO is a woman. I have we have amazing women who work at the Solana Foundation and in the Solana ecosystem that I know that are like some of the most powerful and compelling professionals I've ever worked with. They really keep me on my toes. I don't know. That's hard to hear that's still that you're experiencing that. It sucks. I'm not gonna lie. I just, because it's not like I hope that's not how the women that I work with have felt too. That would be equally disappointing. So.
Also, we're working towards creating that environment where everyone can feel safe and secure to participate in any kind of economy that they want to participate, maybe the crypto economy or the AI economy,
right,
or whatever. And that's where well-being, just to finish answering your question, I think why well-being is also so important, because it caters, like, it's important for many women who decide if they want to participate in the ecosystem, if there's a support system that helps them feel welcome and helps them feel secure. And what we did, for example, to onboard more women into Web3, because I really noticed this is not an environment I want to thrive in. I mean, it's a competitive edge. If there's not many women and you thrive in, then hell yeah, everybody wants to have you on their team, right? But that's also not nice if you don't have some balance, because the social settings are also then very biased. And I just want to see the world represented, because, like I mentioned, I think we're in a formative phase of human history, and that'd be great if everyone could participate and be represented and shape it. So we contributed to a DAO called H.E.R DAO. I'm a governor there, and we did host these holistic hacker houses that were not only for women, but they were attractive to women, because we started the day with meditation, with yoga, there was massage, there was coaching, and it was an environment where women, and also, young mothers, for example, who cannot party until 3 to 5 a.m., which is understandable because they have to take care of their children, right? They also need a space to connect and socialize. So you have these brunches, we have places where you can sip a tea instead of drinking a drink. Not like, all of that is fine. I love partying, so I'm not saying anything against it, but there are also other people who cannot participate, and we want to make it easy for those who would not find it so easy to participate to have a place where they can go, like a sub-community within the larger community. And that was, a major part of it, well-being, like creating an environment in which we really care about the well-being of the individual contributors. I actually created, I would just say this point and then I'll stop and listen to you, Alex, because I'm talking way too much.
We're here to listen to you. You keep talking. I'm just going to ask you another question when you stop. So you're in for a lot of talking.
In 2022, that was last year, we organized about a year ago, the first Wellbeing in Web3 Summit along East Amsterdam. And they had 3 days of programming where builders from the crypto space would come and share about their experience and how they integrate health and mental health and parenting and whatever they felt is part of an integrated lifestyle in Web3, come together and share and speak and discuss in panels what we can do differently. And in these 3 days, there were 3 speakers at least that I witnessed that had tears on stage while they were sharing about their experiences, because it was like a booming market. There was so much pressure. There was so much risk to build things that break. A lot of things also broke. There was never time to check anything. There was no time to do anything. Everyone was constantly traveling. And that's when I noticed, wow, I just had this intuition that well-being would be important. I founded this conference to offer a side conference to also talk about the human topics. But then when I saw what happened, I was like, wow, I did not expect this to happen, that there's so much need for grounding in all kinds of dimensions. And this was really humbling to see, because very successful people would also feel a lot of pressure. People raised so much money, but then they were under the pressure of making a return on the assets, and they were young people, don't know how to deal with all that pressure. Like at 25 years old or 24 years old, how would they know how to $2 million businesses? So
hold on one second. I'm just getting an error here. I really hope this didn't happen. It says, join the studio from a different supported browser or computer. It's saying your browser isn't. Or did you get this
is
error
it
on
mine?
your? It says Yip's browser does not allow recording, which I can't believe that's happening right now.
I'm
I
on
hope we got
Chrome.
You should be fine. I'm not frustrated at you. I'm frustrated. I really hope that we. This has been like one of the most amazing shows I've ever recorded so far, and I really hope we got the content. Let's keep going, and hope that this is just an error. And if it's not, I really want to do another. I want to re-record with you if this is not an error. We'll edit this part out.
It says,
But did you say yours is uploading?
It says keep this page open while we upload your recording.
Okay, then let's leave it. All right, let's pretend like that error. It's got to be a bug. I don't know. Let's just pretend like it didn't pop up, and hopefully it works. I am so inspired by this conversation. The reason I asked the question about well-being and I wanted to talk about that is because it's been particularly important for me in my journey over the last 2 years, especially. And I'm still working on it. You know, it's a really challenging thing, but I think that it's something that we don't make enough time for. Like we make almost no time for it, right? Like managing our own well-being. And I had never broken it out the way that you broke it down into well and being, and it makes a lot of that was really profound for me to hear. And I love that you did the conference. Like I think we need to have this conversation about personal well-being, but also about creating space where people can be accepted and where they can feel well being there. I think there's a lot of toxicity. Like Twitter for me is just like most of the time there's like, I like the builders. I like people that are talking about what they're building and like being positive, but like Twitter is where a lot of crypto marketing happens. And I can find it super toxic. And so, same thing with Discord and Telegram. Like you jump in there and like, there's all these anonymous people and just like very negative things can come out of that. And that's not what we're doing. Like the space is much bigger. Like the smaller cohort of people who are building in the space are super welcoming. I've found it's like a great place to work and just a great space to be in. And there's like layers here, right? There's like managing your own personal well-being, but there's also like creating and accepting an open environment where like anybody can participate. And the internet's typically hard for that, right? There's like this nasty underbelly that negatively impacts our well-being. So anyway, like I think it's super important the work that you're doing. And I just appreciate. I don't know. That was really well said. Really well said.
Appreciate your words and also that you're hosting this space for people like me to be able to share our experience.
Yeah, of course. And I know I want to make sure we talk about unit masters, right? Like tell me about that. I read in our show notes that 50% of your participants are women. I know that that's important to you, like creating a space. So can you walk me through that project and tell me more about it?
Of course. So when I onboarded Web3, it took me forever to really understand the entire ecosystem and how it works together. And I thought if everyone has to go through the same journey, then, not many people who are not already in it will join. In particular, not those who are non-technical, for example, for whom it's very difficult to understand or to start a course with what is proof of work and what is proof of stake. That's nice to know, but it's not relevant. So I went ahead and thought about what is it that one really needs to understand in order to have a basic conversation with your grandmother, or with your father, or with your friends about what is Web3. And I thought about it in a way, in Germany, when you are in elementary school, you, you do something like a bicycle license so that you're allowed to ride a bicycle safely on the streets. And it's not mandatory, but people would do it at school so that they feel that their children are
Safe.
now knowing, yeah, safe. And I thought, can we have that same concept for blockchain, Web3? There's someone who explains to you what is the major themes that you might need to understand. Then you also understand the basic terminology. And if you want to learn more, then you know where to look. So the way we constructed it was like a blockchain literacy course. And because I really felt the strong need to create a high quality program that is free of cost so that it can be affordable to anyone in the world. And we made it free of cost. And it was funded by different foundations like the NEAR Foundation, Polkadot funded the program. And so we were able to not charge for it. And we kept our costs very low. And what the program does is, in a sense, it guides you through a 6 weeks journey of different topics. And the first topic is, what is actually decentralization and the Internet of Value? So, and there we go in depth into what I had mentioned earlier about Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, key concepts. And then in the second week, you would learn about the stakeholders of the ecosystem, because people think about blockchain and then they just think about Ethereum, or maybe they think about the different coins that they can flip. But there's more to it. There's an entire industry that is arising. And that industry, right now is 1% of the global stock market. But in the end, when you look at what are the most valuable companies in the world right now, you would see that maybe more than half of the top 10 most valuable companies by market capitalization are technology companies, mainly headquartered in the US. Right? So that would be like the Metas, the Googles, the Amazons of the world. And when we think, and these is Web 2 companies, and when you think maybe by 2030, 7-8 years from now, what will be the most valuable companies, projects then? You might also think it will be technology companies. These technology companies might not be Web 2 companies, but will be Web 3 companies, right? So what are these Web 3 companies? What services do they provide? How do they keep the economy growing? What is it that they provide along the value chain? What are their interests? Like, what is a wallet provider doing? How do they generate revenue? So that you also know what might be their interest or where they might not have an interest to protect you. Where can you buy cryptocurrency if you want to buy cryptocurrency? How do you store it? Or how do you store your keys? And these questions are answered across that, so that you understand in the end it's a thriving industry that has different players or companies providing different services to you. And depending on what is your interest, you might join one of these sub-industries, or you might join the regulators, because you now understand where are the risks in the system, and you might think, I have to have a word here to shape the industry in a way that I feel it needs to go. Or you might become a media influencer, because now you can become an educator and spread the message amongst others. So different avenues once you understand the basic dynamics of the ecosystem. And then we go into more technical stuff. This is where 95% of other courses start, like the technology stuff about how do you secure the blockchain? How do you align incentives in a world without central authority? So that requires a little bit of going through technology. And then we learn about the DeFi and the metaverse, and the NFT parts of the ecosystem, different applications, use cases. And then comes my favorite part of the week of the course, which is the fifth topic, which is stakeholder capitalism and blockchain for. We speak about sustainability. And this is where, why I think we have 50% women participation rate, because that's a topic many women care about when they are not in tech, when they're not typical coders. They're like, okay, how can I use that? How can I participate in that new economy and create something I care about? That might be climate protection, that might be SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and whatever. How can that technology be used for good? So that's what we do. And then in the 6th week, people learn about how they could create their own token, what they could possibly do with this technology if the technology were mature. I would say we are still not in that phase of the industry where you can now already fully participate only in Web3 and need nothing else, but I could see that future coming in a few years down the road.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's still a lot more to be built to make that possible, and a lot of education. It just takes a lot of education to get there. So, we're getting here to the top of the show, and I always ask everyone, what have I not asked you that I should have asked?
I love this question because I typically ask this too. So I will ask that to you after I give my answer.
Okay.
So you have time to think. What really is important right now is that if you are not yet in Web3 or you have friends who are not yet in Web3, to just take a look and approach it with a sense of curiosity. And also keep in mind that you can bring all your female friends in there so we can create an economy that is inclusive of different points of views, different people with different backgrounds and trainings. Because what we're building here can shape or will shape our everyday lives in the way WhatsApp or Instagram or TikTok or mobile phones in general have shaped our everyday lives since the early 2000s. Right? And this is very important that this future will be built by many because it's the future for everyone and not only by a single minority. How about yourself, Alex? What do you think?
I think my big takeaway from speaking with you has a lot to do with well-being. I think I agree with everything you just said, and I would just add that if you're in this space and you're building, take care of yourself. Think about your wellness and your being, and try to really be conscious of that, because I think I agree. I really liked your analogy and comparison with the Roaring 20s and this being such a formative time and all the pressure cooker that we're all in. Like everybody I know that's building in this space is doing something incredible. That's hard, really hard. And I think most of us that are builders, that are like frontiersmen and women, we often don't think about how hard the thing is that we're doing while we're doing it. And if you aren't being, then you are not able to take care of yourself, right? Like that's part of it, and you'll flame out. And life is short too, and so you have to have that well-being to make sure you're living it to the fullest. And I think especially a lot of founders who are under the pressure, like don't take that into account, and that's risky. I think it's risky for them personally, but also for the space. We need that talent, focused and energized and happy to achieve the goals we're all trying to achieve. So that would be my ending message based on what we talked about.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks, Alex.